Welcome to Nurse's View. Let's welcome our main host, Bina Bendale, with Emily Knife, Nina Hart, and Charisse Williams. Get ready for truth, heat, and voices that don't hold back.
Welcome, everybody, to the episode for Nurse's View. Emily Knife is absent today, so Nina Hart and Charisse Williams and me, myself and I, are all here. And today we are coming on with a very passionate conversation about what excuses people make when they're trying to build a successful business. And I think when you're listening to this particular episode, I want you guys to hear this with the lack of marketing skills. I think this one is really going in where people come up with these, what you want to call limiting belief or excuses, whatever you guys want to call it. I want you guys to hear this because a lot of it needs to be reframed with, if you don't know something, you need to learn it. A lot of these excuses that we've actually all were just getting super heated about even before this podcast, it's really interesting to see different perspectives and what experiences that came to all three of us and how we want to help certain people, but they're so stuck about certain things where we're like, can't help you if you don't, because it all comes from one thing. You've got to listen to what you want to hear. So as for today, I want to kind of bring it up. What are some of the funniest? Let's start with something funny. What are some funny excuses you ladies have heard of when people are trying to build a business and then they're just like, I can't do this anymore because of whatever it is, but what are some funny excuses you guys have heard of so far?
It's funny because and say why it's funny before I tell you what it is. It's funny because we are in 2025 and everybody's on social media, right? So I've heard someone say, I can't build my business because I don't know social media. And I say it's funny because I understand every platform, there's nuances with every platform. So I'm not underestimating that, undermining that. I get it. And we also have to understand that you can build a business offline. You don't have to build a business online. So it's not like you have to build online or you can't have a business. So to me, that's kind of funny. But then the other piece of that too is I have a 4-year-old niece. She knows social media. I hate to admit it, but she knows.
Yeah.
We were just for the holidays. She's on YouTube. She's skipping ads. Even when she was like 3 and could barely speak, she's like skip ad. And I mean that was YouTube, but she can maneuver her way. So if a 3-year-old, 4-year-old knows the essence of social media, or at least knows how to maneuver, surely we are brilliant. We are nurses. We save lives. We can figure it out. And if we don't know, we have access to YouTube, ChatGPT. The only reason why we may not know is because we literally have not asked the question of some piece of tech that literally is on our phone at our fingertips. So that's why I say it's funny because it's almost comical. Because it's like, well, you can learn that in 5 minutes. We can stop hiding behind that now. So yeah.
If we can learn about new medications and how to give new meds, and we like at bedside, let's really be real about this, right? It's like, yes, the social media aspect of things, it's kind of like, it's not hard. You just open, click, post, and it's easier than giving a medication, everybody.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I think my favorite funny excuse that is borderline insulting is I don't have enough time. Because I don't know about you, but you have the same amount of time I have. I have 4 kids. I have 2 businesses. I want to live half the year in Hawaii. I have a marriage I'm very committed to. I have all these things go. I have sports. I have boxing and wrestling and volleyball and church activities twice a week and holiday. I have the same holidays you have in the year. I have the same commitments that a nurse working 2 jobs has pretty much. Only I get to choose what they are. I have the luxury of choosing what those commitments are and when I do them now, right? And if I want to do them, it's my choice. But I have the same amount of time in a day, the same amount of days in a week, the same amount of weeks in a year that everyone else has. So when you tell me you don't have enough time, I'm like, I just write you off then you don't want to do it. Then you don't
Yeah.
want to, you don't have the desire to, or the
Yeah.
drive, or the
Commitment.
stick-to-itiveness to
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
Period.
I think a lot of
Yeah.
people forget
Agreed.
that time is a huge essence, right? And I think when people go, I don't have time, I always challenge it back to going, what are you doing with your time?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing
Yeah.
with it? We
You
all
got
have
9 hours
choice.
a day to spend on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're scrolling, or they're
Doom
thinking
scrolling.
about what to do,
Yeah.
or I don't know, they're like
Would you?
wasting time with something.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one thing that is, it's a question that I always pose tongue in cheek. And I haven't had to ask this in quite some time, but it's a question that I used to always ask if someone said, "Well, I just don't have any time." And I would say, "Let me ask you this: if Oprah called you right now and said, I'm updating my will. I don't have kids. I'm going to give all of my fortune to you, but I need to meet with you 5 hours a week. There's no way. I can't give you. I got to show you how to run my businesses. I've got to teach you my finances.
Yeah.
I've got to teach you everything. And it's worth billions. But I have to meet with you 5 hours a week every week for the next year. Are you trying to tell me you couldn't find 5 hours to get all of
Well, you know that
all of
person always
Oprah's
do.
inheritance?" So it's not a matter of capacity. It's a matter of prioritization.
Exactly.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
We just have to be really, really real with ourselves.
And I think that's a really big point where it's like in my coaching and any type of coaching I do, and I'm with Nina. I got 3 kids, 3 businesses. We're running around, soccer, this, that, painting. I don't know. Kids get sick, right? And a lot of the times it really does come down to priority, right? What are you willing to do? Or what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice? And then on top of that, just putting it into action. Because I think what happens is people get so stuck with, I need to have this and I need to do this. It's the excuse that they're building. It needs to be perfect. I need to make sure this is going. The spelling, the punctuation. Like, yo, just freaking do it. Like,
Spell
let
check.
it be messy. It comes up. It's spell checks. Even on Facebook, there's a little thing on spell checking. You can see the
Autocorrect.
red. And
Yeah.
honestly, who really cares? And to be honest, if somebody was to critique you about your spelling and grammar, congratulations, you got a viewer.
Right.
People are watching that. It's just ironic. It's so crazy. What other excuses have you guys have you heard of? Because I
Yeah.
have,
Well, I just wanted to just
yeah,
kind of piggyback off what you said. I always say you can't optimize what doesn't exist. So you're in your head trying, and I get it. I listen. I am a recovering perfectionist, so I understand fully. But you can't optimize what doesn't exist. So to your point, Bina, put it out there, then fix it. Put it out. Put it out. Whatever that looks like, you put it out and then fix it. And while you can be a work in progress. But if no one knows you exist and you're doing all the things in your head or in your Google Doc and it hasn't seen the day of
yeah,
light, you're just spinning your wheels and you will falsely you'll make the assumption that you're actually working your business,
but you're
and
not.
you're not.
You're
You're
not.
not. No.
And this is when I say, like, I would say, I can't even count how many times I said this at the NNBA conference last year, but I literally will say to a nurse, no more research. You're not allowed to do any more research on your
What?
business.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
more. No
Yeah.
more.
Isn't that
Yeah.
the truth? How many
No
times
researching
do you
anything.
think-
No tabs, no courses,
Yep.
no Google
Enough.
searches, no how to become an IT person, how to run a webinar. If that's not your business, if your business isn't how to run webinars, we're
Don't
not
do
doing
it.
any more research on that. No more. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
once you eliminate that level of excuses and avoidance, that analysis paralysis, you're
Yeah.
stuck with what's left beneath that, which is action. And then you're like, oh, maybe maybe not knowing the answers wasn't the problem. Maybe the problem is I'm not ready to do this. Because if you cut down on the how, you have to get to the why. Why am I doing this? Right. And when the people who are so committed to that why get down past
Right.
how, they're ready to move. They're like, I have to make this happen no matter what because of this reason.
Yeah.
And that's when we start seeing movement, start seeing revenue, start seeing relationships, start
Yeah.
seeing.
Yeah. It's so true because it's like I always hear one of the biggest excuses I hear all the time too is someday I'm going to do. And I tell people, I'm like, the last I checked, there was 7 days in the calendar. I'm like, y'all made an 8th day? I'm like, where does the 8th day come from? Like, where do we get that? I didn't get a sex 8th day. I'm like, if I wish I had an 8th day, and I wish I had that 26th and 27 and 28 hours in my day too. And it's like, they always have this make belief of like, someday I'm going to dream this. And I'm like, if you actually prioritize it, and I think that's like the big thing behind all three of us we're talking about, is really putting the priority behind what you actually want to do and having the true commitment behind it. So I think another thing with a lot of people is that they're very good about keeping their commitments to everybody else. And then they're like, I'm not going to commit myself here. Now, granted, today Emily had some, family emergencies and she's dealing with her daughter. So completely different scenario,
Life
correct?
happens.
Nothing. That's life. But like the three of us, we've made a commitment to this podcast and we're like, all right, we're doing this. We're going to make it work, whether it's an hour or 2 hours. We're going to hammer it in and come up. And I think a lot of people have that where they have this commitment and then they have these excuses that flay and then they don't stay in that action. And they're like, oh, well, Sharice is not going to make it. So then Nina's not going to. And then next thing you know, you don't see each other for a year.
And I think that there's nothing wrong with dreaming. I'm like the dream queen. I am dreaming of living in Hawaii half the year, in Tennessee half the year. That's a dream for me right now because there's nothing supporting that in reality, right? So I'm not discouraging people. I'm encouraging nurses to dream about the possibility of what could happen. But I think it's how we put that into words when we start this like you're saying, this victimization attitude of like, what can't happen for me because I'll never be able to do that. And someday I want to do it, but it can't be today because, and that's where we go back to these excuses. One of my favorite quotes in the world, and I hope it's really her because, nowadays it's like you never really know if it's really real or not. But Florence Nightingale said, I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took any excuse. Like, I had that on my wall for years. I love that quote because it's like, once we start giving excuses, we are saying, I can't have my dreams because of XYZ. And I'm not going to live that way, right? Like, not going to let that be. Like you said, there's real things that happen that we have to work with, that we just life happens and we have to work with that. Excuse me. But when we start saying, I can't have this because I am not tech worthy enough. I can't have this dream because I don't have time. We're saying I'm choosing this excuse over my dream. And that's what I'm saying. Be very aware of your words and what you're putting out there. This is something that I have had to work on for years.
Yeah.
Be careful what I'm putting out there because I'm undoing what I want with my own words.
Absolutely. And I think what's really important too, and I couldn't agree with you more, Nina. What I also think is important for us to really call attention to is we're making light of it because it's we've seen and heard a lot. So so we can make light of it. But the reality of it is when we are making excuses, whether it's us making excuses for why we can't work out or, whatever, or it's a nurse that is making excuses for why she can't start her business or why she can't do X, Y, and Z in her business, it all boils down to fear.
Oh,
It's
100%.
fear. And I really want to just call that out because when we can recognize it as fear, that actually gives us power and really helps to dissipate the power that fear has. Because fear will cause you to procrastinate. I'll call it a fear flavor. Fear flavor. Some of the most common fear flavors and the way that that it's showing up is procrastination, distraction. I don't know if dismotivation is a word, but today you're really, really motivated, and then tomorrow you're like, you kind of lose,
That imposter syndrome, yeah.
yeah. And here's the really cool thing about fear. Fear only shows up when you're on the brink of doing something big, when you're on your growth edge, when you're about to do something that's outside of your comfort zone that you've never done before. That's when fear shows up. Otherwise, fear's not around. And I think it's really important that, I think it's really important that because we've not been taught. I'm going to say probably the majority of us have not been taught that when fear shows up by way of procrastination or distraction or any of the other fear flavors that, that show up, when it shows up, that is, it's not a stop sign. That's what we've been taught. It's like, oh, fear. Okay, let me stop. Let me retreat. Let me back up. Let me hold on. Let me do some more research. let me reanalyze that. So
So
it's it's the go sign. It's
yeah,
really that is your indicator to go because you are literally on that growth edge and you're about to do something big,
yeah.
which is in alignment with what it is that you're saying that you want in the first place.
And I think a lot of the excuses that I get is like, exactly, it's all fear based, right? A
Mhm.
lot of it's fear based. And it's because I asked them, I had a call yesterday and it was a sales call. And this one lovely lady, and I closed the deal. But initially she's like, I need to talk to my husband or my spouse. I'm like, look, please do. All in, go for it, comes up, but do not make this as an excuse. And I say this because I asked this particular person, or I asked this on a lot of my calls. It's like, does your husband or partner, do they own 50% of your business? And they go, nope, it's me. I said, okay. So when I asked, I was like, do you still work bedside or are you still in a job? And they go, yeah. I go, do you get permission from your husband to go to work? And they go, no. I go, do you ask for permission from your husband to cook dinner or XYZ? You ask for suggestions, correct? They go, yeah. I said, then what makes you think that you have to learn to make these decisions or choices on your own? Because otherwise that they might have that fear or those excuses. And then that's going to get in your head like, well, my husband said maybe we should wait and we should do this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, get more clients under your belt. And I'm like, how do you get more clients under your belt if you don't know what you're doing?
Like, you're not getting
Like,
clients.
if you're not doing anything, like it's such a double-edged sword, right? But it's
Yeah.
like one of the big excuses that I'm a very big believer. I'm like with Nina and I love my husband and he is my biggest support system. But when I make a business choice, this is 100% being a LLC here, okay? Like, yes, he's an employee and he helps with IT and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm like, you get my business when I die, not when I'm alive.
I like that. And I think
It's me. Like it's an excuse, I feel.
it is. And I think again, as women, unfortunately, we do this a lot. And I call it out because I always say, are you abdicating your power? Because I am always anybody who I'm talking to, whether I'm working with them or potentially working with them, whatever, I want to encourage them to stay empowered and to stay in their power. And oftentimes when people say, oh, I need to talk to my husband, again, not diminishing the relationship or not to talk, to talk about finances, but oftentimes it's abdicating their power and saying, and what it's really saying is, I'm not really sure. So let me see if he's really sure. Well, if you're not sure, he for damn sure ain't gonna be sure.
I mean, it ends up, right? It's just
Yeah.
call a friend and then they're like, I'm not here. Or where do you it's like, what's for dinner? What's for dinner, honey? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? Oh, well, I don't know. What do you want for dinner? Oh, I don't. I'm like, holy shit, I'm fucking hungry, y'all. Like, just get some dinner. Like, we're by the
At this
time
point, hot
it's
dogs.
dark. Like, and
Right.
you're gonna end up going out or doing something and having those things. But I think that's where like a lot of these excuses come from, right? Whereas just
Fear.
like you need to just
Yeah.
it's a fear-based thing. She ended up closing and I asked her those hard questions. She goes, no, you're right. I'm like, would your husband be excited about your business growing? And she goes, oh, he's 100% all in. I'm like, so then what are you worried about?
Yeah.
I
Like,
feel like this is a good segue into like blind spots in business because I
Yeah.
think a lot of these excuses people are not aware of or don't even recognize in themselves. And I was thinking as you were talking about like these blind spots can actually, especially how you mentioned marketing in the beginning, these blind spots can actually keep you from moving forward. So you're not aware when you're making an excuse. You're not aware when you're abdicating your power. You're not aware wh- when you're not making a decision. You're not aware that not making a decision is a
It's a
decision.
decision. Yeah.
yeah,
And you, or you have an area that is a weakness for you or that is a true area that maybe you're making an excuse and it's I feel like it's different for me. Okay guys, I understand what you're saying here, but in my situation it's totally different. That's not true, right? And so it's like it's
From
always
that
different
part.
when it's me. It's always different when it's me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm saying that jokingly, but also like I truly feel that, like, well, my situation sometimes is different, right? Like, so it's like, I get that, but also that should be a switch that flips on for us to pay attention to that this is a blind spot for me. If I'm making excuses saying that it doesn't apply to me or that my situation's different or that I need to, do something different, maybe, or I'm 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 being defensive or I'm avoidant, maybe I need to recognize this is an area I need more support in because
Yeah.
I obviously don't have the capacity to make this decision to support my own marketing. If I feel like it's a weak area for me and I'm making excuses for it, like, oh, I'm just not a good marketer. And so that's why I did this really half-ass kind of thing, whatever, or that I'm not getting any clients and I don't know why, but I'm a bad marketer. This should be an indication that this is an area that's a blind spot for me, and I need support from an expert in this area. If I expect to have an improvement in that area, it's gonna be because I seek help from someone who is an expert in that area or who has surpassed me in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
I think
sure.
it's really when you're talking about these blind spots and things, it's like entrepreneurship or nursepreneurship is going to pull out skeletons that you are not aware of. And it's really the only way we're honestly truly going to have a profitable business is if you really look into yourself and do the deep work. Be that true, authentic person that you are, right? Because I think when we talk about excuses and blind spots, it's like this whole like, I'm a bedside nurse, and a lot of those things were maybe overshadowed, right? It was never taught. Like, we weren't taught marketing in nursing school. We don't know the fuck about what
Marketing, sales,
sales,
any of it.
finances. Like, again, we were just so
Lead
focused
generation.
on how to save your life, right? Remember, lead generation, people just kept coming to the hospital. Like, they just
Yeah.
don't know. Like, so we don't have any lead gen problem in the hospital, right? And I think there's a time where it's like, we're so sheltered to a level from bedside nursing that our flaws truly don't really come out. And I don't say this in a negative way. What I'm saying is that when our flaws do come out, it turns into this toxic culture at bedside. And then people don't know how to handle it. And there's no tools in nursing school with how do you handle somebody's behaviors that is triggering you, and how do you say that in a respectful way. So when you're doing that and then you're taking that into business and you're by yourself sitting in your own little office in my little 3-foot little space here, and you're sitting there going, wow, the hell, like that person triggered me. I'm mad. I'm pissed. I got triggered from a post the other day, which we can talk about on another day. And it's like, my excuse to myself was, why am I triggered? And for me, it was because the way that it was marketing was portrayed to be like, well, I have 10 sales calls this day and it doesn't need to be this way. It's kind of like, I want 10 sales calls a day. Like, let's be real. That would put me over the month. And then I don't gotta do shit for the rest of the month. So I think there's like a lot of different things behind it, but it's like that true authentic self and what we need to work on. I have a lot of triggers and now I know how to handle them better.
What we all do. So two things that came up for me as you were sharing all of that, Bina, is one, I've heard this said because you identify, things come up that you didn't even know lived inside of you. I mean, really, it's in your subconscious that you had no clue, but
Mhm.
they definitely come to the forefront. Those things definitely come to the forefront when you're in this because you are given lots of opportunity for growth. I'll put it like that. Lots of opportunity for growth in so many different beautiful ways. And so yeah, those things will appear. And so sometimes, so people are like, oh, well, I'm gonna, because you mentioned working on yourself. So sometimes I've heard people say, well, I'm gonna work on myself first and then start your business. You don't know what you're working on. You don't know what you don't know what you're, there's no way around that, you guys. So you can't prepare for it. You don't even know that it exists until it
Yeah.
shows up in a
Yeah.
post that triggers you and something that someone says in a mental block that you're trying to get something done. And for whatever reason, you can't move past it. And you don't know that it exists until it appears. So that's
Yeah.
one thing. And
Okay.
that's even more reason why there is absolutely no reason why anybody listening to this podcast should be trying to build their business on their own. Why would you try to do that? You don't get an award. There's no such thing. Like, you do not get the entrepreneur award of the century for no. And in fact, you're making it harder on yourself. Why would you not get guidance and support from someone who's been there, done that, can help you even see things before they even happen? Unless you just like to, live life on the hard side, which I don't understand why anybody would want to do that. And then the other thing that brings me to, again, something that you said, Bina, is the importance of community.
Oh
Community is
yeah.
so important because when you are in your 3 foot, 3 by 3 room or however large your office
Yeah.
is, entrepreneurship can be very isolating. It can be very lonely. And then you start to think that it's you
Yeah.
and that it's only you. And you're the only one coming up against these issues or blocks or whatever. And it's not. And I always say there's so much growth and ascension happens in community. Get yourself in a community so that
Yeah.
way, one, you can see that it's not just you. And then two, the reason why so much growth and ascension happens in community is because you've got someone that started like you. Y'all are both nurses. Y'all have a similar 3 kids. You got 3 kids. I got 3 kids. You got a husband. I got a husband. You got this. I got that. And then they're crushing it. And
Yeah,
now it helps to break a belief barrier in you that you've told yourself, back to excuses, you've told yourself, oh, I can't do it because XYZ, but yet Susan's doing it. And you're like, oh, well, shit,
Right.
maybe, wait a minute now. Okay,
Yeah.
if she can do it, I can do it. So it helps to break belief barriers and it really helps to breathe belief into you and you accelerate so much faster. So much
agreed.
faster.
I would love to say one thing that both of you have touched on that I want to like call out is that I feel like I don't know if maybe it's as women, maybe men have a different experience with this. I don't think so though. And maybe it's nursing that we're so connected to other people and relationships in nursing. But there's so much emotion to this. And from what Bina said, from her getting triggered from a post and feeling a certain way to feeling like we're ready or not ready to do something, like you're never gonna feel ready. But
No.
it's really important for me to remember, and this is something I have to remind myself all the time because I do get triggered daily by
We're
being an
human.
entrepreneur. Isolation triggers me, all kinds of things trigger me. But while emotions certainly have a place in business because it's very individualized, it's about us, we're building our business on top of who we are as a person and the relationship we have, they have a place but they aren't the driver. And just because I feel a certain way, I woke up feeling really sick of being an entrepreneur one day and I shut down my whole $1 million business and quit.
We're just gonna do that.
Right. Why am I gonna do that?
You take a
No.
break.
We're gonna take a
Emotion
You
is
go take a walk. You go take a walk right quick.
exactly. So it's like emotions are great data for us to see, like, wonder what made me feel that big kind of
Yeah.
feeling, but they
Mhm.
don't run our business. And
Yeah.
if they run your life, it's probably a mess. We have to regulate our emotions all the time, and
Right.
it's no different in business. You're not going to feel ready. You're not going to feel confident. You're not going to feel like you're doing everything right, and you're going to have to ignore those feelings completely, show up anyway, and keep moving forward every day. So it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like emotions can't be your strategy. If emotions are your strategy and you're waiting to feel ready, to feel like you have enough time, to feel like it's manageable, to feel like you can quit, that day is never coming. Those
Yeah.
shouldn't be your strategy. That shouldn't be driving your action. Now, I have a high value on intuition. And when I feel the intuition to do something, or I feel like God's leading me to do something, I do act on that. And I do use my emotions as a gauge to say, how do I feel about this? But that
Right.
doesn't make or break my business or whether or not I move forward. I never feel still. I've been in business for 6 years. I never don't feel nervous on a new client call. I had a new client call today that's for a big contract that I'd really like to have, and I felt nervous and I felt unprepared and I felt like I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and I never get over that, right?
Oh
Like
my God, no.
but I still showed
It's
up for the
human.
call. It wasn't like, maybe I shouldn't join this call because I feel so nervous. I'm probably not ready. I probably should just cancel this call. No, like
Oh,
canceling the call. I worked hard for that, right? Like
Right.
You hit on something. I think there's a thing about when we make excuses of like when we're talking about emotions, right? People think to this day, I've been doing this now for 5 years, possibly 6, right? And every time I get on a corporate call, like that I'm going to close a large deal or even a $10 deal, I want to just remind people it could be as small as $10. I still lose my shit prior. Like, I'm still like, oh my God, don't I prepare? Do we have this come up? And then I sit here and I go into my superpower, I show up, and then I remind myself that if I let those inner critics keep going, I would not have, I wouldn't even be on this podcast.
The imposter syndrome is the same way. It never goes away. I
It
never
just
feel
blows away.
qualified or worthy. I have never felt it.
Yeah.
It's
One
horrible.
Yeah. One thing that I'll just add here is just we have routines for many things. Like we have routines for our kids. One thing, and I've been a full-time entrepreneur for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And what I have learned is one, if I don't have a routine, I feel scattered and I cause undue
Right.
emotions and fear-based things that just pop up. So I have a routine. I literally still to this very day, you guys, 20 years later, I have a routine that I do that I ground myself. It's really a nervous regulation routine. It helps me get in my power if I happen to step out of my power, or helps me to stay in my power if I happen to be in my power that day. Because every day ain't the same. Some days you're like, what am I doing? So
Yeah.
helps me get in my power or stay in my power. And it's a routine that I do to where I don't have all that extra stuff. I don't have to worry about all that extra stuff because I'm grounded, I'm centered. I know what the heck I'm doing. And I'm not walking into a kind of a frazzle. And if by chance, for whatever reason, I don't do my and I do it proactively. I'm not like I don't typically say, "Oh, I have a call today, let me do this." I do this is something that I like it's a practice I do daily. But if for whatever reason I got out of my practice and I don't do it, I'm a hot ass mess. And I'm like, sure, can't do what?
It's
And
yeah. And I just want to come up because I want to make a sacred time because we are coming up at the top of the hour for this particular podcast is really coming down to if you can give an advice to one person right now you can help them release these excuses, what would you tell them?
I always say thoughts are optional. We all have thoughts. We
Yeah.
all have thoughts. Now, whether you're going to believe those thoughts is one thing or the other, but they're optional. You don't have to believe every single thought that comes to your mind. And I actually would encourage you not to agree and hold on to every single thought that comes to your mind. If it does not serve you, if it is not congruent with where you are going, let it go. Act like you didn't even hear it. Let it go. Replace it with another thought that is congruent with what it is that you're wanting to do.
Oh,
Well,
Nina, what about,
thoughts are optional. That's my advice.
what about you, Nina?
I 100% concur with Charisse, and then add a layer on top of that to default to your why and really like make the decision that this is more important than anything else. Like, how important is this to you? Because we all experience our journeys in different ways, but it seems like the people who achieve the success or the goal that they were aiming for or their dreams did so because they did not allow there to be any other option, right? So, like for me, when I got fired from my CEO job, I could have just kept looking for another job, right? Like instead of going out on my own, I could have said, when I got my first contract came right to me, I could have said, is there health insurance? No. Well, then I can't do this. Is there a guaranteed hours and I'll guaranteed for sure make this much money a month? Well, then I can't do this. There's a decision that you need to make at some point that the why is more important than the how. And if you can make that, I feel like it's going to take you to the next level to move past these excuses and to be able to control these thoughts. I love that is the starting point for where this is going, because I do think that is like number one. If you said what's more important, what you said or what Charisse said is Charisse for sure. But you have to have the foundation to default to. So that why has to be more important than anything else that happens from now on. It has to be more important than the excuses.
Yeah. I couldn't agree any more with either one of you. So with that, we're going to leave it at that because there's nothing more to say from that. Release the negative thoughts and to follow your purpose and your God-given gift or whatever universe, whatever politically correct you want me to state that. It's just like, make sure your why is stronger than the actual reasoning for other stuff. Because when that mama bear syndrome comes out is how I do it when I had children. When that mama bear syndrome comes out, I'll do anything for my children. And we have to have that same mentality of like, I want to do anything to serve my purpose. And I think once we realize that, a lot of the excuses goes away, just like how all three of us are mothers on this call. How when we held that baby for the first time, we didn't know what we were doing, but guess what? We figured it out. There was a lot of nights of restless nights and a lot of sleepless nights. And there was a lot of that didn't work. And oh, don't feed that baby again because that baby threw that right back up. And there was a lot of trial and errors. And I want to remind people it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. So with that said, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Have a good one.